Remember when family games were at its best, or when even your grandparents tried this game? Those were seriously great times. Nintendo Switch Sports tries to recapture those great moments with a more personalized, yet very unambitious experience, refining the same concept of simple, family-friendly, motion-controlled games, and applying it to new and old sports alike. Just like Wii Sports, Nintendo Switch Sports is a light party game best played with friends and family. But it may just not be as exciting because it doesn't capture the same novelty feeling like its predecessors. Nintendo Switch Sports comes ready to go with 6 sports. You can play volleyball, badminton, bowling, soccer, Chambara, and tennis. You can play by yourself, with friends, or with strangers in its new and polished online mode. All the sports are pretty well designed, with great background and quality, but inferior compared to Wii Sports Resort. When I tried out Nintendo Switch Sports a few days ago, I started off by playing local, just to kinda get the feel of the controls and get used to the new motion controls. No one talks about it, but the idea that I don't need a sensor bar anymore is freaking amazing. The magic of Wii Sports only got better when I brought Nintendo Switch Sports over to my friend's house and we played through a bunch of the sports. There's a lot of great things when playing against CPUs or trying to get a perfect game in bowling. But Switch Sports is undeniably at its best when you're playing in the same room with other people. Waving your hands around and getting sore arm and back pain is what makes Switch Sports Switch Sports. Some of the games are smoother when it comes to the intuitiveness of the motion controls. Volleyball is by far the most difficult sport to play. During a match, you'll be automatically moved through all the different positions, from server to setter to blocker. Your success is almost completely based on cooperation with your teammate, because well-timed sets, jumps, and spikes combine into a stronger, harder to return shots. Once you get the hang of the positions and motions, the sport can be a lot of fun. And if you're playing with a friend, it will feel really good when you're setting up the ball and consistently getting it over the net. Badminton is by far the best sport. This mode was clearly inspired by table tennis, which we can all recall was very cool, but extremely tedious because the motion controls for that sport were so bad. Badminton fixes that. The sport gives you more space, and you can reset the motion movements anytime you feel something is slightly off. It offers the most control, satisfying underhand returns, smashes, birdie placements, and more fine-tuned accomplishments. You can also hold the ZR trigger to initiate a drop shot, forcing your opponent to rush to the net so you can then smash the birdie to the opposite corner of the court. The court is not big enough for more than 2 players, however, it's the perfect game for friends because it's easy to hand the Joy-Con over and spectate a match or two. There were a couple times where we jokingly cheer for someone else to get the point, and because of that, it made for a fun pass-around sport. Bowling, on the other hand, doesn't rely on 1 to 2 players, as you can play with up to 4 players at a time. While it does work, it's harder to focus on your screen, and it also takes away from the experience of hoping that person won't get a strike. There is an option to still play with a single screen, and quickly I found that just worked better. Sure, the game was longer, but it ended up making way for more conversation, and overall it was just easier to focus than having 4 small screens in use at the same time. The obstacle mode throws increasingly difficult obstacles in the way of your strikes. This makes for a lot of fun and is also a good way to practice hitting strikes at different angles. There are different variations of difficulty, so if you find yourself breezing through easy mode, you can amp it up a little. Unfortunately, 100-pin bowling was a huge part of my childhood, and seeing it completely unavailable is rather unfortunate. Soccer is quite disappointing. It plays like a slower, less exciting version of Rocket League. The ball is larger than the players, and you spend most of the time in a match slowly running across the field. One-on-one was generally more enjoyable, simply by virtue of the field being smaller. while 4-on-4 takes forever with the ball constantly switching possession. Soccer also bafflingly only allows for up to 2 human players at a time, preventing it from being redeemed as a fun party game. Soccer also doesn't use the motion controls you'd expect. Using your hands for a game is just ridiculous and is not true to the Wii Sports franchise whatsoever. This could have been replaced with a much better sport. Really, anything would have been better than this. You also have a shootout mode. That's where the physical version comes in. The only use of the leg strap currently in Switch Sports is a short and mediocre soccer shootout game that feels more like a gimmick than anything else. Nintendo says it will update Switch Sports this summer to allow you to use the leg strap in the full soccer game. Its effectiveness in this limited mode makes me doubt that it would actually be worth the extra $15. Chambara is by far the most aggressive and intense sport. Very similar to Wii Sports Resort, the game's main mechanic is using your Joy-Con like a sword to hit an opponent. If you've chosen to use the charge sword, more successful blocks result in a powerful charge that is used to release a stronger strike. When using the twin swords, you can swing their weapons simultaneously to execute a spin attack that makes their weird handling very much worth it. Once again, however, showdown and speed slicing is nowhere to be seen. Tennis is great. It's short, sweet, and simple. With refreshing graphics and better motion controls, it's even better than the original in Wii Sports. So far, I am still undefeated in tennis. Let's see if I will get beaten when Switch Sports releases. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to try out Nintendo Switch Sports online yet, as the servers weren't available when I tried to use them. However, there is a lot to look forward to if you plan on playing games online by yourself. For people with a competitive spirit, Switch Sports introduces a ranking system. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of content creators making content about the new ranking system. While there isn't much benefits to ranking up, your status does change as you get better, and as you continue to play, you can unlock more cosmetics for your characters. All I want is pants for my Mii, so I don't look like a freak when playing bowling online. Nintendo Switch Sports also introduced new avatars to the series called Sportsmates. This was widely viewed as odd and questionable. If you've seen people's reactions, their face went from whoa to wait. In my original analysis, I really shat on the way they looked, calling them, and I quote, something that comes out of some kid's weird anime show that you'd introduce to your daughter when she was 5 years old. My view has definitely changed now that I've seen more of the customizations. They aren't bad and aren't hard to get used to. However, I find it quite odd that Nintendo would push you to use these Sportsmates when there is limited customization. The head and eyes have serious limitations. This can create problems when you're trying to add glasses or trying to change certain aspects of your face. I found myself switching between my Mii and Sportsmates. Both are truly not satisfying. Miis were clearly not designed for the game. As you can clearly tell, only your face actually appears in the game. The legs are still Sportsmates' legs, which I just find rather unnerving. I totally understand why Nintendo chose to use Sportsmates as a main focus rather than Miis. It is clearly more suited for the environment, and the characters have much better facial expressions and overall a better personality. This is ironic though. A game trying to add personality, yet chooses to remove tons of amazing modes in esports, lacks good vocals in esport, and has a limited amount of sports to begin with. Unfortunately, this game doesn't have enough to offer if you're expecting to play by yourself mostly. You can easily get through all the content in roughly 1 to 2 hours, and it's quite possible that you will get tired of it quickly. While simplicity is what makes these games so perfect, its selection of 6 sports almost feels like a downgrade compared to the 12 sports that launched with Wii Sports Resort. The idea that golf won't be available at launch is extremely disappointing and honestly unexpected, but at least it gives us hope that we can expect more DLCs in the future. Judging from the massive leaks, I'd say I'll probably be re-reviewing this game a year from now. Hopefully, there will be a lot more to be pleased about. While Nintendo Switch Sports struggles in pretty much every category, it still serves as a fun, simple party game that everyone will enjoy. While its inconsistent mixture of old and new sports varies in quality, Switch Sports continues to succeed in what its predecessors did so well. While it may not be groundbreaking like the first one, it's still a great game to introduce to friends and family. This game will not only be perfect for younger kids and their parents, but better graphics, improved motion controls, and awesome music will serve as a great experience for people just wanting to have a good time. However, don't be surprised if eventually the novelty wears off.